at the height of its employment, employed around 30 people, had to go down to 0, with the owner and management working for nothing for a while in order to weather the storm, and now are back up to 11 people producing a product that sets the standard for high-pressure pumps for the entire world, not just the nation. It's a hidden secret, Battle Creek. And yet, this is a type of business that produces jobs, and given the opportunity, will produce more. And expanded creativity. We went to Duncan Aviation, an amazing facility where people come from all over the world to have the services that Duncan Aviation does here with great quality. And yet we hear things that make us wonder why in this state do we not encourage solid businesses like that to expand and make it easier for them to do what they can do best and employ people. And then, of course, had the opportunity to meet in a small group or a roundtable discussion with a number of business leaders from a number of organizations talking about their concerns. And I think generally speaking, they voiced the concern, we want to at least have an idea of something solid for the future that government is going to expect and government is going to put in place, and how we need to work within that system. There are some of us that believe that government ought to be backing further away and allowing more latitude for businesses to make these decisions and expand for the good of people with the present regulation and tax structure in place that right now is so onerous. In Washington, the main concerns that I would express to you today are in the area of the jobs and economy, but more specifically those individual things, going back to such things as the stimulus bill that was passed. The stimulus bill has stimulated one sector of the economy, and that's been the government sector. And I don't hold anything against government employees who are signed on to do the job they're asked to do, but I hold a great deal of problem against the elected representatives of the people who've expanded government and are willing to say, while the private sector is making decisions that cut jobs, that cut benefits, that cut wages, or at least freeze them, why doesn't government force itself to do the same thing? Why don't we stimulate the economy by allowing the private sector some latitude of success and to hold on to what they've risked for? Moving on from that, we look at cap and trade, the energy tax that was passed. That ultimately, if it had gone through the Senate, will be the largest tax increase on Americans in the history of the United States. And it will affect not just the manufacturers. It will affect not just the farmers and the inputs, the fuel, the fertilizers, all of that will have additional costs. But it will impact each of us who pay the freight for those additional costs. And when you have those costs, it means there are less jobs. And if there are less jobs, there are less opportunity for us to pay for health care ourselves, to provide for our families, to have the resources to come and benefit from this great and noble experiment called America. And then we move on from the card check, the energy issue, and we go to the health care issue. And when most, I would guess, in this room, including myself, would say there is a need for reform in our health care system. We've got great health care, but we've got a system in place that makes it more difficult and probably equally as important, more costly than it needs to be. What needs to be done? Well, I'd be glad to talk about some plans that I introduced when I was in Congress, that one on the health care and the energy issue both have become centerpieces for the alternatives that Republicans have offered in both cases, an all of the above energy plan and a health care reform that's patient-centered, private sector, and doesn't increase taxes or mandates on any of us in the room, and yet can expand the ability for our health care system to meet more and more people at their base of need. Be glad to talk to that further, but again, both Sheriff Bouchard and I want to not spend too much time talking ourselves, so we can hear from you, and then I'm sure we'll be able to address some of those concerns.